Hi, everyone. Welcome. Is this on? Am I on mute? No, I'm live. I'm not on mute. All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Liz Moore. I'm the Executive Director of the Peace and Justice Action League of Spokane, and we are very excited to be with you all together in person and hybrid tonight. Hello to everybody on Zoom. Hello to everyone in the room. We want to begin by respectfully acknowledging that we are on unceded Indigenous land, that although we are gathering in a hybrid way, we are all somewhere, and where we are is Indigenous land. We are gathered here on the shores of the Spokane River, on the occupied traditional lands of the Spokane people and other interior Salish peoples who have stewarded this beautiful land and this precious river since time immemorial. We offer our respect to elders, both past and present. We commit to intentionally addressing the outcomes of the doctrine of discovery with the truth about the human beings who are already here and who continue to resist the impacts of ongoing colonization and to fight to sustain their culture, language, and people. We know it is insufficient to simply acknowledge the land that we occupy. We commit to centering the voices, leadership, and solutions of Indigenous peoples in our communities and around the world. And we stand in solidarity with Indigenous people who are leading the fight to protect our planet's biodiversity across the globe. We encourage you to give financial support to Indigenous-led organizations here in the land of the interior Salish peoples, to buy native and to integrate the essential voices of Indigenous people in our lives all year long, because we know our words are only as meaningful as our actions. And tonight, as part of our commitment to race equity, PJALS continues to support local nonprofit organizations led by Black, Indigenous, and other people of color communities through fundraising efforts. We're seeking to transfer white wealth into the hands and decision-making of communities of color. As part of this effort, our Showing Up for Racial Justice Committee is supporting the Asia Pacific Islander Coalition Spokane with a hybrid fundraising event tonight. So we will hear from these fantastic leaders up here. Look at this dais full of wonderful people who are really precious and important partners in our social justice work. And tonight they're speaking on Reimagining a Future with Asians and Asian Americans, our vision for collective liberation. So let's listen and seek ways to give our very meaningful support. Thank you so much. Let's welcome everybody.
Thank you, and welcome, and thank you everyone for being here and joining us today. One vision of collective liberation for us is that someone who looked like us will actually be sitting on the dais one of these days, and sitting as a city council member. It won't be me, I believe. I'm Filipino. And I am the chair of the board of the Asian Pacific Islander Coalition, Spokane. Our mission is to center the power of Asians and Asian Americans to build a just, healthy, and thriving community for all. We envision a world of collective liberation where Asians and Asian Americans can live in a community.
Did you call it? You called the phone and you can't find it?
Because it might be inside.
Okay, let me go back to that. We envision a world of collective liberation where Asians and Asian Americans can live in a community of well-being, safety, and belonging. Our values include joy in celebrating ourselves, belonging, racial, social, environmental, economic, and health justice, honoring complexity and nuance, intersectionality, intergenerationality, intentionality, and accountability. So we will start off by showing a short video.
I gotta share my screen real quick.
I started working with APIC in 2015. I remember being invited to a meeting that Vang Xiong, who was the chair of APIC at the time, and Ben Cabildo, they were bringing together Asians and Asian Americans to actually get APIC restarted. And so for the first 2015 and 2016, we really focused primarily on candidate forums.
There was this initiative that was going to be put on the ballot that would have empowered any city employee to ask for documentation from anybody who would walking around be different, speak with an accent, be a different color, wear different clothes, whatever. And that in a nutshell is me. And I was really concerned because my son, he was going to start taking driver's ed classes. So I was very concerned that he's going to be parking at a meter and a person collecting change from the meter could turn around and say, show me your documentation. Are you here legally or not? Suddenly, somewhere, I don't even remember exactly where, I saw a workshop being offered by PJALS. I went to that workshop where they said, we will empower you to raise your voice and to have your voice heard. And I was like, I need to learn how to do that. By the end of that workshop, I was like, Liz, I'm starting a movement right here. We're not going to let this proposition pass. And she said, I have somebody that I can connect you with. She connected me with Puyan Lam, who was chair of No Discrimination Spokane. They made me co-chair. And ever since then, I've been in community with APIC.
So I got involved with APIC in 2018 after meeting community members through the Spokane Independent Metro Business Alliance, who had worked with Rowena Pineda at the Spokane Regional Health District. And they introduced me because I am Asian and they were Asian. I just really fell in love with the organization and the people there because of that fact that I got to be with people that looked like me, share the same experiences, and just a place that I could feel like home.
I got started with APIC several years ago. My boss at the time was Rowena Pineda, and she invited me to APIC. Rowena is a community leader, very well known, very connected, and she's kind of always had this foresight to empower and mobilize the younger generation. And so I think she knew, hey, Naomi should be involved, and so she invited me.
Last year, I heard Sarah Dixit, the co-chair of APIC, speak at the pro-choice rally at Spokane downtown, and I immediately knew that I wanted to get connected with her. I recognized that she was a South Asian woman, and I've never seen someone that looks like me as a public figure. Feeling so empowered to be able to speak in front of the whole city, and that was just so awesome. So I looked her up and I found her on Instagram, I DM'd her, and that's how I ended up finding an internship here.
To me, being part of APIC Spokane is being in community. And I stay involved because I also think it's important to nourish and nurture new generations of Asian and Asian Americans to become involved.
As a co-chair and executive director of APIC, I feel that I have a big responsibility to serve my community in the ways that they want to be served, and not just in the ways that I believe that they might want to be served. I see so many different perspectives as I've been doing this work, and it's really broadened my vision of what it really means to be Asian, and has really brought me back to my roots and just the erasure and the intergenerational trauma and the racism that all comes with being an Asian person in America.
Being part of APIC means coming together with the community, whether that means to grieve together or whether it means to come together and collectively advocate for policies that will impact our communities for the better.
It creates for me a sense of community that sometimes is missing in Spokane because not everybody gets me. Or I have a particular desire to go watch an Indian movie and there's nobody who will go with me.
I am an international student from India who moved here for a college degree 4 years ago in 2019. I have never really been around people that look like me, mentors that understand my story, mentors that speak my language or share an identity, and I think I've always been in a search for that. So it really means a lot for me to be able to work here, to be able to know that people understand my culture, people understand where I'm coming from, people understand my story, and I understand their story, and it's such a shared experience that makes me feel loved and cared for.
Being part of a collective group that organizes for change, for serving and helping our community.
Having the resources that APIC has to share, I feel as if I will be able to spread all of those resources and increase resource literacy so that other people like me who felt the same way like I did can also feel the same joy that I felt here.
To work with other immigrant and refugee families and folks, bringing their voices to a point where we can collectively voice things.
My vision for APIC is really one that encompasses Asian and Asian Americans and be able to provide a progressive voice for the community in different policy issues.
I believe that the vision for APIC really is the community's vision. It's them creating the space and the group that they see themselves a part of and belonging to.
And so my son, for him and for children like him, to have that ability to be able to just pick it up from wherever they need to and take it forward, their needs are going to morph. What we are seeing as our needs today as immigrants or as Asian community members are different from what it's going to look like in 20 years' time.
And I think that being here and learning about all the resources that we have and how we get them out in the community has been really powerful to learn, because now I know what to tell fellow Asian people about where to go or where to find help or where to feel like you belong here.
When I look at the history of APIC Washington, we started in the mid-90s after the Welfare Reform Act, which took away access to resources and rights of people of color, of immigrants, and even of citizens, and that affected not only our Asian community, but also our Latinx community, Pacific Islander community, Black community. And APIC Washington was started by our elders over 20 years ago, and our chapter of APIC has been sequentially becoming younger in leadership, and I see the future of our organization also being younger. And it's funny to say that it's being younger because I don't think I'm that old, but there are definitely generational differences that I see in youth today, and that they experience the world in way different ways than I did when I was younger. And I just want to be able to empower them to be able to speak for themselves and for what they want to have in their community and in their life to be able to thrive.
There you go. Thank you. That's nice. Now we're going to dive deeper into some questions with our panelists. So I have 4 people with me: Sarah Dixit, Urvashi Lawan, Margaret Hall, and April Dickinson. And we will start off by just having them introduce themselves a little bit more. So I'll start with Sarah. If you can share with us your pronouns, your heritage, your role outside of APIC, your role with APIC, and your favorite APIC value. That was a test. That's why I read it.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Dixit. My pronouns are she, her. With California, but moved up to Spokane. And within, well, I guess, so in the outside of APIC, I am the regional organizing manager for the Greater Washington and Idaho. And within APIC, I am civil engagement organizer, coach Louis. And my favorite value would either be joy or little money. Everyone, my name is Urvashi Lawan, he or she have pronoun. I am currently majoring in technical ambassador. I will be interested in performing the necessary Graduated from the semester. Just graduated my spring in APIC. In APIC. Value belonging. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. I'm April Dickinson. My pronouns are she, her. I am Chinese and white. And with APIC, I am the treasurer of the board, which is really fulfilling. And outside of APIC, I am the communication specialist for the Washington State Budget and Policy Center. So we're working on taxing the rich and trying to get more resources to the communities. And my favorite value from APIC is also joy and not cheating, I swear. Honoring complexity and nuance. I think that there's a lot to celebrate in recognizing complexity within the Asian community.
Thank you, everyone. So my next question, and I'll start with Urvashi. When you think about your heritage and your favorite APIC value, do you feel like they intersect?
Oh,
If so, where and how?
Remember to use mics.
Absolutely, they do. I come from India. India is a land of celebration, of festivities, of love and joy. And as I said, my favorite APIC value is celebration. And I think that I say this because we get so caught up in doing all of this hard work for our communities. We somewhere lose a part of joy and celebration and take a break and look back and be like, wow, we did a lot and it's good work that we're doing. So I think that's all worth celebrating. This was a hard question for me. I think really is more from my experience as a daughter of immigrants and growing up kind of feeling like I never quite belonged. That's just because it was Florida, but actually there were actually quite a bit of Asians who got in Florida, but then growing up, I stopped using my language because I knew that that was not the dominant language and I didn't want to stick out. I avoided friendships with fellow Asians. And I just did a lot that in order to assimilate, I think, into the dominant group. And so there's always this desire to chase belonging, but it was always belonging to the wrong place. And so now I feel like I'm at a point as an adult where I'm realizing how much I missed out and I'm trying to reclaim that. When we moved to Spokane, we moved here about 7 or 8 years ago. And after a couple of years, my daughter, she's about 6 years old. She asked me, why does everybody look like dad? And I
I took a minute, I wasn't quite sure what she meant by that. I thought maybe, my husband is military, so I thought maybe she was referring to everybody's clothing being the same, because when you go on base, it's just a sea of green flight suits. And she said, no, everybody looks like Dad and Eleanor. They all have light skin, and why is that? Was, oh, okay, everybody is white is what you're saying. She goes, yeah, that. And that really just broke my heart. Because then I knew that she was picking up on it too, this desire to understand where she belongs in our society and in our community. So for me, it's really important that people find their sense of belonging, because without it, we become very vulnerable to other issues, mental health issues, homes where maybe we chase the wrong groups looking for a place to find ourselves. And that can be very devastating for some. So I hope that everybody finds their sense of belonging.
Thank you, Margaret, especially for expressing that point, being vulnerable. Thanks, you're welcome. April.
Yeah, when I think about kind of growing up, I grew up in a biracial family too, and the Chinese side of my family really loved to argue. Maybe just have very passionate discussions. And I think that to me was a real expression of nuance and complexity. Like, we're not all the same, we don't all have the same opinions, but we still learned a way to like have conflict and still come together as a family and still have that foundation of love and respect for each other. And I see that also happening in like community spaces, even in like social movements. We might not all agree with each other all the time, but thinking of ways that we can still find common ground and kind of make it through the complexity of nuance is just really important to me. And it's kind of like made it so that I just love learning with people, and it can be fun, and you get to really learn, you get to learn your values when you stick up for yourself. And I think that that's been a really strong value of mine too, is like, you gotta sometimes stick up for yourself, even if you're in a space where you think you're among friends. You just never know what people are thinking. So
Thank you, April. And I must say, April brings that nuance to our board discussions, which is always much appreciated. Sarah.
Yeah, and so my response is similar to mine.
Speak louder.
Yes, I also will remember too. So when it comes to belonging, yeah, being the daughter of immigrants, it was always being caught in the in-between. So either not being American enough or not being Indian enough. When my parents immigrated, they very intentionally siblings very white names like Sarah. You heard my name. What I was or what I looked like. And I think they did that on purpose. They wanted us to assimilate and succeed in the US in the way that they were told is the best way to succeed here. And they didn't teach us our language. And so it was one of those things where growing up, it was just really hard to figure out who we belonged. And I think as I've gotten older, just learning the concept of what belonging. If you don't necessarily share all of the same backgrounds or experiences, like even David, right? There's a lot of different that here. And even though very understanding belonging in community is really important and something that I really wanted to hold on to and develop here.
Thank you, Sarah. For our next question, I'm going to start with Margaret. You're seeing a pattern, right?
Yeah.
We mentioned collective liberation in our vision. What does collective liberation mean to you?
I feel like I'm something. But yeah, there it is. So for me, collective liberation means that we don't just acknowledge the injustices done to one group, Because when we do that, we're still supporting the injustices being done to another. And there's so much intersectionality that in order for us to truly liberate and to create equality and equity, we have to make sure that we are bringing everybody up. There's a quote that I loved and I wanted to share it. And I hope I'm not getting her name wrong. Lila Watson is an activist in Australia. She said, if you have come here to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you have come here because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. And I thought that that was so powerful and meaningful because really we can't find liberation and equity unless everybody is brought to the table.
Thank you, Margaret.
Sorry to interrupt. For folks on Zoom, if folks can speak like rock star style directly into the microphone, that'll help folks on Zoom.
You were really good the last. Great.
Yeah.
That volume.
Yeah, you got it. You got 10.
You'll be able to hear yourself pretty well in the room.
April.
Okay. Sometimes I think it's hard to think about collective liberation because of the structures that we're bound in right now. And so some conversations that I've been having with friends and colleagues on this topic is really about the world destroying and world building simultaneously. So we know and we understand that the systems that we are operating in now were developed by, owning white men who very much excluded others. And if that's the world that we're operating in now, what structures that they put in place do we actually want to keep? I'd argue not many of them, but that gives us the opportunity to be creative and to be world builders and to do that together and to be, instead of exclusionary and oppressive, to have a vision that includes everybody. So I had a conversation with another friend too, who said, like, I really want our movement to be radically inclusive so that everyone can see themselves in this vision and that we are, just to Margaret's point, that we are including everybody and we're lifting everybody up together. So that aspect of the way that this looks to me too is like, how do we free ourselves from commodifying our minds, our bodies, and our spirits for labor? And how, when we can, like, I just think about how much of our structures are dependent on what we can do for like our employers or for profit. And so I really am trying to imagine a world where like we are free from that. And a lot of people, when you ask them, what's that look like to you? They're like, I don't know, 2 weeks vacation. Like, dream bigger. Like, it has to be more than that. And so I realize how hard that is. And even sometimes for me, I don't necessarily know what that means, but I know that there's that moment of like when we'll know when we're free because we'll feel it. We'll feel a lift in our spirits and in our bodies and in our relationships with each other.
Thank you, April. Sarah, what is your dream for collective liberation?
I don't know that I necessarily have anything more to add to what Margaret and April said so beautifully. I think it's just the values that this APIC, all of those things, right? Collective liberation is everyone being able to have joy and to have celebration and not have like their system stare them down and make them to live in a way that is inhumane. Like we treat one another not with the type of value that we see in ourselves and our family and other loved ones. And so I think collective liberation is really making sure we are including everyone and wanting everyone to thrive true joy and so human.
Thank you. Rashi.
All of these that are really hard for me to top right now. You've basically kind of covered everything that I have in mind about this, and like Sarah said, all of APIC's values truly cover what I imagine collective liberation to be like, starting with safety of all of our communities and beginning there and making sure that everyone feels safe and loved and cared for and no one should be afraid of being who they are and living in a space. And I think that is a very good beginning to lead it up to a space where people feel celebrated and joyful and all of that stuff. This is all coming from, I'm a student at Whitworth University currently, and there is a lot going on with queer rights and queer, like anti-hiring, like anti-queer hiring policies. And this last month, we've all as students have been working towards undoing some of those damages that are done to the school, to the students, to the faculties, and it's so scary in there. Like, I never want anyone to feel that way, and I that's what collective liberation looks like to me. They're not here.
Thank you, Hershey. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. Now we're going to go deeper to the next question, and this one more specific. How do you imagine collective liberation happening in Spokane? We'll start with April.
Well, I think it's already starting with APIC. I am not like shy to say that I think we're doing a really amazing job of setting up an organization that really respects people as full human beings. And I made sure to check with Ryan before I made any comments about this, but you know, I came to the board without really much board experience, but I had some like relatively like quote unquote radical ideas about how a nonprofit organization should be run. Because typically nonprofit employees are often told to like survive off mission and cash in alone, right? But like your mission statement does not pay the bills. Your passion will not feed you. You need to get that cash money. And also like have time to rest and feel joy. And so when we were kind of establishing the personnel policies around APIC becoming a 501c3, you know, I was like, what about if 30 hours, like the full-time work week? And there was like not a beat missed. Everyone was like, yes. So I was like, I'm ready to argue with some people about why this is important. Not a single argument. It was just yes. And then it was like, why do we pay people like way above minimum wage? And why don't we make it so that someone could have one job to, you know, not only meet their basic needs, but also allows them to have like full of joy. And so I think we're getting there. I think, you know, no organization is perfect, but to have started from that place was so powerful. And I just think that, you know, to Liz's point earlier about like following the lead of BIPOC organizations, like we want to be leaders when it comes to how we treat our employees. And if we say that we care about the well-being of communities, we are part of those communities. So we have to respect the dignity of our staff and our team as well. The programs don't happen, the services don't happen without people. And so one of the ways that we can really, I think, show up for ourselves is to show up for our teams. And so if you want to know how liberation starts, like take a look at what we're doing in the community, and so how we're organizing as an organization.
Thank you, April. Now, Sarah, tell us how you imagine collective liberation happening in Spokane.
It's a big question. I think I see collective liberation the most in Spokane whenever we have opportunities to be in coalition with other really great organizations here. I think a lot of people assume in Spokane that since we aren't Seattle, that we just don't have anything going on, which is really frustrating, you know? I think we have such passionate people who really want to see our communities change for the better and to really see us care for one another. Not just because it's like the right thing to do, but because it's what all of us deserve. And I see that in the rallies that are often happening, and it's the same people that I see in every single one, even though I know it's not necessarily the only thing they have going on that day or the only issue that they care about. But they're at every single one, getting loud about all these issues in a way that doesn't just feel performative, but feels authentic. And I'm really proud of them,
of our community here in Spokane because I think it's really unique. Here.
So glad she's came. Where was she?
Spokane specifically, I'm still learning a lot about Spokane's history, Spokane, the structures that are in place in the city. And from all that I have observed, I think collective liberation in Spokane looks like empowering community-led like initiatives, empowering all of these organizations that are already working towards a good cause and listening to them, spreading the word, and starting at the grassroots instead of you can do both big levels and grassroots, but I think people kind of get the power of grassroots movement, and I think that's a very good place to always start. Yeah.
Thank you, Rubashi. Margaret?
Yeah, I guess I'll go last. Think collective, I'm sorry, I feel very aggressive with this microphone. I think I think collective liberation in Spokane would look a lot like various organizations working together to power vulnerable groups so that we can leverage that power together rather than small pockets of organizations working separately. And I think that I already see that happening with APIC, which is part of why I really that I can already tell that there's so many partnerships that APIC has in order to try to lead that deliberation here.
Thank you, everyone. Next question is, how can others contribute to our collective liberation? And I'm going to start with Sarah.
I have a list, so it's not really super eloquent. But I'd say showing up with your time and dollars, which today, you, voting, obviously, and not just on presidential election years, but everything, especially our elections, which I'm sure you will see. But getting renewed, because the people who typically sit up here, right, make a lot of decisions, and they have to hear from us, even if it gets annoying. It's the same thing that we're talking about every week, and they gotta know, right? Your constituents, regardless of whether. And I think the biggest thing is not getting discouraged, even when everything feels like it's awful, and instead of getting rid of people. And that was a hard one that I'm trying to keep going with, because all of this that we're doing, progressive movements in general, they are not a sprint, they're a marathon. And so keeping ourselves going is so important, because people who don't want us to win definitely have more money than us, positions of power, they have all these things, but we have the people power and we have the dream that we want to see, and we can talk about it. But we just have to get discouraged. And that can be really hard. So that's why I think like celebration, joy, really help, because then we can lean on each other when it gets hard and just have a support system along the way.
Thanks, Sarah. Rubashi?
Just like Sarah said, being here with contributing to the organizations that you think are doing great work for the community, as well as just knowing that you do hold the power to make a difference. It is easy to feel as if your individual voice cannot make a difference, and to just know that you do have the power, and there are people out there who want to listen to you. You just have to find the right people, and you have to be loud and make changes. Also, just again, celebrating every little victory, because every little step means a lot to someone. If you don't feel like it's enough, I'm sure. If it's just celebrating every little victory.
Thank you, Urvashi. Margaret?
I think that a lot of being part of collective liberation is being with curiosity and empathy and finding ways to help create space for others, finding out what the needs are for vulnerable communities, especially for people who are in positions of power or for people who have more privileges than others, is to find ways to find out what the needs are and how to elevate their voices. And if you can't elevate their voices, find ways to use your own voice on behalf of them. It's interesting because last year we had an event very similar where we had an art show and some friends come, and it was wonderful for me to see their faces at an event like this because I just couldn't imagine, white friends come to an exhibit centering Asians for. And I talked to them later about what it was like for them. They said that it felt a bit uncomfortable, like they shouldn't be there. I thought that was really interesting, where that discomfort comes from. And maybe it's because the default has always been to center white stories or white narratives, that it feels very awkward to not be in a space that does that. So what I would ask people is to let themselves find their discomfort in these spaces and to be okay with it. And if you're not sure if you belong there, to ask, and that's okay. And to ask, how can I be in this space? What is my role here? And support and encourage the space without censoring it, while still lending support. So for those who want to be part of collective liberation, it's making sure that we help make sure others get the chance to use their voices and to share their stories, and to give a chance for others to be vulnerable and to listen and be willing to be okay with the discomfort in that.
Thank you, Margaret. April?
That's a really powerful example, Margaret. So it's interesting that you had that experience. Yeah. I think I'll just build off that a little bit too, in terms of like just interrogating the way that whiteness shows up. Because I think sometimes what happens is it's every little group for themselves, and actually what we're trying to say that it's all groups together against whiteness. It's all groups together against systems of oppression. And it's I think it's important to remember that, because then it's like we are all included and we are all trying to do that together. And so I would just like encourage that any situation that you're in where you're kind of facing those systems that maybe feel like are upholding whiteness, that we take the time to stop and think about the ways in which we could do it differently. So I'm still very much in that like world building mindset, but these structures show up in so many small ways that I think we tend to forget or maybe not push back against the small situations, when in fact those might be the easiest ones for us to address first. And then we kind of build that muscle of like, okay, maybe I was a little uncomfortable there speaking up against authority, but I did it and I figured out how to do it. And now I'm a little bit stronger. And maybe then the next time a bigger thing comes up, we'll be more prepared. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of what I would say, is that we all have opportunities every day to be doing that. And that they're actually doing that is in the service of lifting all of us up. And I think that's, again, the goal of collective liberation. It's not just for the Asians and Asian American community in Spokane, but it is really for everybody. The last thing I wanted to really lift up too is in our mission, we talk about centering the power of Asians and Asian Americans to build a just, healthy, and thriving community for all. And so I just want to like lift that up one more time, because I know that a team of folks came up with that. And I just love it so much, because one thing that I want to say is that I think we also need to rethink what power looks like. And I think that what I want it to look like is kindness and love? And how do we actually show power in that way where we're coming from our hearts and not from like domination, right? Like, I think sometimes you hear power and it's like only leadership and only leadership that looks a certain way, when leadership can be very like horizontal, and it can be about community, and that power can also still be like very soft and gentle. And so I just wanted to lift it up in this space as well.
Thank you, everyone. That is our last, that's the last question that I have, but is does anyone have anything else they want to add before I turn it over to Liz? Well, thank you everyone for joining us for the panel. I am going to be stepping down from my role as the chair of the board of APIC at the end of June. And because it is time, you've seen the leaders.
Thank you all so, so much. Can we do some more appreciation for these phenomenal leaders?
All these people too.
And all these, oh, everyone. Okay, let's do that in just a minute, if that's okay. Because now is the time. This is a benefit. This is a fundraiser. And one of the ways that power looks like in our society is what? Money. Money. And one of the important things about power is that there's power over and there's also power with. And what we want to do is build collective liberation through power with. That's one of our deeply, deeply held shared values. Yes. So now is the time. Oh, look into the eyes of the people on Zoom. Okay. Power with. So what we ask you to do is now feel how inspired that you feel, how moved that you feel, how committed that you feel, and invite you to give in honor of that, in honor of what is stirring within you. There is a link in the chat on Zoom, and on your program, there is a QR code. And if you don't have a program, raise your hand. Oh, well, okay, our marvelous Pajals youth organizer interns will solve that problem because they've got the program. So yes, excellent. Let's hear it for Adelaida and Ellis and Pascal, youth organizer intern. Great. And on the program, there's a QR code. You can scan that with the camera on your phone, and it'll take you directly to a form where you can give. 100% of the proceeds go directly to APIC, and encourage you to give till it feels good, right? Like we can't be shy about putting our money where our values are. And we also know that every gift makes a big difference. There is no such thing as a small donation. If that means that you can give $5 and that's a meaningful gift, it is received as a meaningful gift. If it means you can give 500, it is also perceived as a meaningful gift. And Shar let me know that before I came up here, we had already raised over $500. So I'm hoping that we can go as high as 1,000 tonight. I feel like 1,000% of like, yes, 1,000% yes to what has been said up here. And so I'm hoping that we can raise $1,000 tonight toward our wonderful partners in APIC. So I'll be quiet for just a moment while folks click the button, do the things, and with great appreciation to all of you who came out tonight or who stayed in tonight and joined us here for this wonderful event. Thank you so much. And thanks again to these really fantastic APIC leaders and to the members of our Showing Up for Racial Justice Committee who had this idea and helped publicize it. And particularly want to recognize Shar Lichty, who's home tonight, who has done a huge amount of work to help coordinate tonight's event, along with our digital organizer, Bex Matthews. And I would love to recognize Justice for All here with Scar, who is making all the technological magic occur. And Francis Grace Martel, who produced that wonderful video that we saw earlier. Thank you so much. As well. Will you take? Yeah, sure. Go ahead. If you could scan the QR code and send them that link. That would be. Let me turn that question over to Shar, actually, because
apicspokane.org.
apicspokane.org, but I don't think the donation link is on there, is there?
No, they don't have a donation link on there, and but is the that's set up a bit.ly though. That's on
Okay. It's also in the emails that you all received when you registered tonight. It's linked in there as well. And that might be the easiest thing, is to just forward that email. Oh, do you have the bit.ly? Yes, please. Thank you.
So bit.ly/fund APIC 23.
One more time. Such a hit.
bit.ly/fund all caps APIC.
That might be hard for people.
And we will also send an email tomorrow that has the same link in it again as well.
yeah.
So
I'll send out a follow-up email.
Thanks, Shar. All right, any other questions?
We have a brief plug.
Please.
So May is Heritage Month for Asian Americans. So we will have a bunch of events that are coming up. So if you follow us on social media, if you sign the newsletter, you'll be up to date. Invite your friends, family, coworkers, whoever. Because they're always a lot of fun, and there's also and the QR code as well to show. There's also a website.
And on social media, is it APIC Spokane? Wonderful. Let's invite folks who are in the room to come up for a group picture. And I'm going to ask if Shar will share me an update on the total, and I'll share that with you as soon as we all have it. So let's come on up here and get behind folks.
We can go up front right here. How about we just stand in this? It's just easier than getting everybody behind the.
You guys stand where the city council people stand.
Yeah.
I can just grab from you. Are you gonna time it? Do you want to join?
Oh, I was just gonna.
No, I guess it's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're just gonna run.
Just
All right, you can see if you're in the photo. You guys need to be a little bit closer. Some people need to be on knees. Cheese. Collectively, all smile at that camera.